me okay? I have the mic on now. Is everyone able to hear all right? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you again for being here, for showing up for jury duty, for going through all those uncomfortable questions and that whole process. But thank you for showing up, and I thank you for your attention as we go through this trial. This is Crystal Rasch. She was married to Zach Rasch. She had children with Zach Rasch. She's going through a divorce with Zach. Now this is Crystal and Zach on June 11th of 2024, together at Culver's in Oconomowoc, just before 10:30, 10:27. And this is Crystal Rasch and Zach Rasch walking in the parking lot of Goodwill in Oconomowoc again on June 11th, 2024, just before 11 o'clock. And this video is the last image that captures Crystal Rasch alive. As Crystal walked alongside Zach on that June morning, Crystal was a dead woman walking. The man beside her, her husband, Zach Rasch, is the man who killed her. That is what this case is about. Crystal was a woman who was alive, who had children, who had a future, who had plans, and who was last seen alive with the defendant, Zach Rasch. The evidence will show that in June of 2024, Crystal Rasch was not a woman preparing to disappear. She was not preparing to abandon her children, to give up on the divorce. She was not preparing to abandon the life that she was trying to build for herself. You will hear that a divorce was filed between Crystal and Zach, but you'll hear that Crystal was positive, optimistic about that, optimistic about her future. You'll hear that she was trying to become more independent, including working towards having her own place. You will hear that though her children were not in her custody, that though there was a pending termination of parental rights, both for her and for Zach, that she was continuing to maintain that relationship with her kids. And that she had every reason to believe that that relationship would continue. You'll hear that she remained involved with her children. She maintained regular visitation. She regularly communicated about them. She was not a woman fading out of her own life, but a woman still trying to hold on to the parts that mattered most. You will hear that she was hopeful, that she was making plans, that she was moving forward. And then all that stopped. Crystal disappeared. Here's a calendar for reference, as we're going to be talking a lot about dates. On June 10th, you'll hear that Heather Doherty, the foster parent for Crystal's children, received a message that Crystal would miss that next day's visit with her kids. You'll hear that Heather responded and sent Crystal photos of the kids, including a photo about one of the children's kindergarten graduation, but that Crystal never responded to those pictures, never commented on them. And that was extremely unusual for Crystal, to not comment about pictures sent to her about her children. And in fact, you'll hear that Heather never heard from Crystal again. And from that point forward, the evidence will show that everyone in Crystal's orbit, stopped hearing from Crystal. Jumping forward now to June 23rd. On June 23rd, Crystal Rasch is reported missing. The call first goes to patrol to look into it. Patrol Deputy Zachary Kukan is dispatched. He first speaks to Diana Free, Crystal's stepmother, and the person who made the missing persons report. And he starts trying to determine where Crystal might be, who was the last person to hear from her. You will see Deputy Kukan makes contact then with the defendant on his property outside his residence on Wood Road in the town of Clyman. And you will see Deputy Kukan's squad and body camera capturing that interaction. And I just ask you guys to watch that carefully. When Deputy Kukan arrives, the defendant does not simply walk to the law enforcement officer in the squad to speak to him. Instead, you will see him come from the area that we will eventually learn is in the area of a burn pit. And he goes to a vehicle, closes the trunk, and then, and only then, does he go and speak to Deputy Kukan. After that contact, Deputy Kukan goes to speak with Robin Reels, a close friend of Crystal's. And while he's there with Robin, in real time, Robin starts to receive Facebook messages that are purported to be from Crystal. But Robin will tell you that these messages are coming from a different account, Facebook account, than what she's used to from Crystal. And that these messages did not sound like Crystal. The wording was wrong. The style was wrong. And whoever was sending these messages wouldn't do the one thing that would have proved that it was Crystal, which is get on the phone, get on video, and show themselves. At this point, the case is turned over to the Detective Bureau. And on June 25th, Detectives Justin Cotney and Andrew Rolfs are assigned. They go to Crystal's residence and they go into her bedroom. And there they find her calendar, like a month calendar, similar to like this. And that catches their attention because that calendar, that month of June, has appointments, whatever, what have you, written out on it. And each day is crossed off. Up until June 9th. Every day is crossed off until June 9th and then nothing. So investigators begin tracing Crystal's financial activity. They contact her bank and they obtain her debit card transaction information. And they see that transactions from Crystal Rasch's debit card take place after Crystal has effectively disappeared from her life. So they begin pulling surveillance of those transactions. They begin sort of working backwards. One of the first surveillance videos that they look at is from Menards in Beaver Dam on June 23rd. The same day, earlier in the day, that Deputy Kukan made contact. And what do they find? Not Crystal, but the defendant. The evidence will show that the defendant used Crystal Rasch's debit card to purchase, on that date, from Menards, 6 32-ounce bottles of Santeen drain cleaner, which is highly concentrated sulfuric acid. Continuing to look into this, the investigators learned that on June 22nd, the day prior, the defendant used Crystal's debit card, this time at Menards in Johnson's Creek, for 2 32-ounce containers of that same drain cleaner. The evidence will show that the defendant used Crystal's debit card several other times and places during the month of June after Crystal had effectively disappeared. On June 16th, at Blaine Farm and Fleet, Ace Hardware, and Walmart in Watertown. On June 18th, Quick Trip and Walmart in Beaver Dam. On June 19th, at Walmart in Watertown. On June 20th, at Blaine's Farm and Fleet and Quick Trip in Watertown. On June 22nd, at Speedway and Walmart in Watertown. On June 23rd, at Walmart and Quick Trip in Beaver Dam. And you will see evidence that some of those transactions involved purchasing cleaning products, stain remover, upholstery cleaner, seat covers, air fresheners, and drain cleaner. and some were simply just ATM cash withdrawals. But the evidence will show one fact that runs through all of those transactions. Crystal is not there. She's not in the videos, the surveillance videos. She's not in the vehicle in the parking lot. She's nowhere in sight. The defendant is alone, using Crystal's money. Now, at this point, investigators seek and obtain a search warrant for that Wood Road property in the town of Clyman, Dodge County. And that search warrant is executed on June 26th. Inside the residence, law enforcement finds several receipts connected to some of those debit card transactions among the defendant's property. They locate a large amount of cash, and they locate a 9mm Taurus handgun and a holster. Outside in the property, they find multiple burn areas and hone in on one of them, and there they find a tooth and a bone fragment known as the Petrus pyramid. Now, you'll hear from a forensic dentist, Dr. Ledros, that the tooth matched known dental records for Crystal Rasch. And you'll hear testimony explaining what the Petrus pyramid is, a dense part of the bone at the base of the skull, from which DNA can sometimes still be recovered, even after burning. You'll hear that Petrus pyramid was sent to an outside lab, and a DNA profile was developed from that bone, and that DNA profile was consistent with the DNA profile developed for Crystal Rasch. Now, at about the same time as this investigation is going into this Wood Road property, law enforcement is also tracing the movement of the defendant, his defendant's vehicle, through flock camera information, which shows that that vehicle traveled towards the Wisconsin Dells area. Detective Cotney learns that the defendant's family has property in Adams County towards the Dells. Investigators determined that the defendant traveled to Adams County on June 24th, the day after Deputy Kukan first made contact with him. A search warrant is obtained for that Adams County property, and there, on that property, investigators find the defendant's Mitsubishi Eclipse parked near a camper. Now, the evidence will show that this Mitsubishi Eclipse, this vehicle, was the vehicle that the defendant was using when he was with Crystal on June 11th. When they were seen together at Culver's, when they're in the parking lot of Goodwill, and the last image that we have of Crystal alive. But the evidence will also show that beginning the evening of June 11th and continuing in the surveillance videos from the debit card transactions that followed, the defendant is no longer using that Mitsubishi. He's using different vehicles, a Dodge Ram and a Chevy Cobalt. So when investigators locate the Mitsubishi hidden away on that Adams County property, they're finding the very vehicle that he was using when Crystal was last seen alive with him. And inside the Mitsubishi, they find blood. The evidence will show blood saturated into the seat belt, blood in the area of the front passenger seat and front passenger door, that it looked like someone had tried to clean, but not nearly well enough. Samples are taken and tested, and the evidence will show that the blood in that vehicle is consistent with a DNA profile developed for Crystal Rasch. Now, during the execution of the June 26th search warrant on the Wood Road property, investigators also seize the defendant's cell phone. They get a search warrant for that. They examine it. And then they learn what the defendant had been searching. And I ask you to pay attention not only to the content of those searches, but to the timing of those searches. The evidence will show that on May 28th, 2024, nearly a month before Crystal was reported missing, the defendant visited a website asking, "Do you die instantly from a gunshot to the head?" He visited a site about the difference between a headshot and a chest shot. He searched, "Will a gunshot to the head instant death?" And he searched, will a 9mm kill an animal if shot to the head? On June 6th, June 6th, just days before Crystal's last seen alive, the defendant searched, how long can you get widow's benefits? And can you get widow's benefits if taxes were never filed? So even before Crystal is even gone from the story, before anyone's even looking for her, the evidence will show that the defendant was searching about fatal headshot wounds and widow's benefits. Then on June 11th, the same day that Crystal is last seen alive with the defendant again searched whether a 9mm would kill if shot to the head. Then after June 11th, the searches change in nature. On June 12th, he searched carpet cleaner and visited carpet cleaners at Menards. On June 14th, he searched, do raccoons eat bones? On June 19th, he searched 2023 Eclipse cross replacement passenger seat and visited a site for a Mitsubishi Eclipse cross front bucket seat. On June 22nd, he searched, can you clean a vehicle interior with cold water? Do opossums eat bones? Is sulfuric acid flammable? And what happens when you add gas to sulfuric acid? Then the searches turn towards law enforcement and warrants. He visited a website titled Basic Guide to Fourth Amendment Protections. He searched can police get search warrants on Sunday in Wisconsin? He searched how fast can police get a warrant? And later that same day, he searched Wisconsin missing person alert, missing people in Wisconsin, and active missing persons near me. On June 24th, he again searched about sulfuric acid and what happens when you add gas to it. And on June 25th, he returned yet again to searches for Wisconsin missing person alert, active missing person near me, and missing people in Wisconsin. So the evidence will show a progression. Evidence will show that before Crystal disappears, the defendant is searching about fatal headshots and widow's benefits. After Crystal is gone, he is searching about cleaning, bones, replacing parts of a vehicle, sulfuric acid, how quickly police can get a warrant, and about missing persons alerts. Then months later, on October 24th, law enforcement returns to that Wood Road property with another search warrant to conduct another, more thorough search of the property. And they search an area near the original burn pit that had not been searched thoroughly the first time. And there they recover additional bone fragments, among them ribs, mandible, tooth material, and another petrous pyramid. And before the end of the state's case, you will hear the defendant's own words. You will hear his interview with Detectives Cotney and Rolfs. And when you hear that interview, I again ask you to listen carefully. Because the evidence will show that Detective Rolfs repeatedly pushed the defendant with the essential question, what did you do to her? And the defendant's answer over and over wasn't an answer to that question at all. Simply, I don't know where she is. I don't know where she is. I don't know where she is. So listen to his words. Listen to his inconsistencies. Listen to his contradictions. And then compare them to what the evidence shows. Compare what he says to what is provable. Compare his explanations to the surveillance videos, the bank records, the acid purchases, the internet searches, the blood in the vehicle, and the remains found on his property. When you step back and look at all of the evidence together, the picture becomes clear. Crystal Rasch was not a woman who walked away from her life. She was moving forward. She was pursuing a divorce. She was hopeful about the future. She was staying connected to her children. Then she disappeared. After she disappeared, false messages appeared in her name. The defendant used her debit card. He bought sulfuric acid. He bought cleaning supplies. He withdrew cash. Before she disappeared, he searched about headshots and widow's benefits. After, about acid, bones, cleaning out a vehicle, and how fast police can get a warrant. He traveled to Adams County. Her blood was found in the vehicle. You'll hear that her remains were found in the burn area on his property. And at the end of this trial, when you've considered all the evidence will not leave you with a mystery. It will leave you with the truth. That Zachariah Rasch intentionally killed Crystal Rasch and then tried to cover it up by using her identity, spending her money, mutilating and burning her body, and giving the police false information. And at the end of evidence, the state will come back and we'll talk to you again. We're going to ask you to return the only verdict that the evidence supports, which is guilty. Guilty as to both counts. Thank you.
Thank you.